Let's go ahead and start the game right now. The map is Collosseum. Let's go. So, I didn't spend too much time, well actually I didn't spend any time before the match discussing this map because it was the first map. And we already discussed a little bit about some of the overarching themes and strategy that we see on this map. But really, it's an interesting position for NonY and F91 to be in, because right now we've seen F91 be really aggressive in the first 3 games. Even in Game 4, where NonY ended up just barely holding off this sort of huge, massive aggression, it's still really scary to play against a player like F91. And now that we're on a map like Collosseum, which theoretically is really nice for this sort of early expanding Protoss play, it's still going to be interesting to see the mind games that are going to be going on in this match, to see if NonY can continue to play solidly. It seems like NonY has just gotten to his comfort level against F91, that he was able to win Game 4 nice and comfortably, and that he was able to win Game 5 just with solid straight-up play. So right now, it looks like NonY is again going to be going for early expanding, and we don't see a 9 pool going down for F91. In fact, F91 is sending a drone scout across the middle of the map, which I think is an entirely good thing to do, because, you know, if your Protoss opponent is going 2 gate, that would be a great surprise after NonY's consistently solid play. So I think that's sort of interesting that F91's thinking to himself, man, my Protoss opponent has played so solid, I'm expecting a 2 gate this time to scout cross map. So we do see F91 being a nice good little Zerg and building his hatchery on 12 at his expansion. There you go. No early pools. Kind of funny, out of the 6 games, we've only seen 2 games in which F91 has made his hatchery first. Just a wide gamut of play being employed by the Zerg player. And NonY, again, he's not overreacting. It's kind of interesting. A lot of Protoss players send their first probe out to scout, and then when they build the forge, they send their second probe to scout, so they get to that base super duper early. But NonY's doing a good job of not overreacting too much, building just 1 cannon. And note that if he saw Zerglings coming, he would immediately build a gateway to wall off, and then send probes. He's not building 2 cannons early to hold off his opponent that way. As a result, NonY again is able to get that Nexus up consistently earlier than the typical Protoss. Excuse me, had a little bit of a burp there, because I woke up this morning and had one of those extreme energy drinks, you know what I mean? One of those with like a full throttle energy drink, you know, like the extreme prison rape energy drink, and it's like, whoa, I'm going to take this before I do my StarCraft cast. Like, so yeah, just had a little bit of carbonation fizz coming back up. So yeah, we see that the typical 3-hatch play going down for F91. We see that he's taking his natural expansion and his second natural and throwing down that 3rd geyser. This totally typical type play. We see NonY again doing an excellent job of not making too many defenses early. He's getting his cybernetics core in just a second, his assimilators right on time. And NonY doing a beautiful job of keeping that probe alive. I think that's one of like the biggest leg ups that you can learn as a Protoss and a Terran player against a Zerg is that the longer you keep that probe alive, the more dramatically your game will improve. Because even though NonY just lost that probe now, he still noticed that there were no Lings coming. The Zergling speed hadn't come out yet. You have the layer right now just starting for F91, and his expansion at his 3rd base is about to finish. But by keeping that probe alive for long enough, Protoss can make extremely stereotyped decisions. He can follow down a really steep path in some aggressive fashion. So for example, a Protoss player who sees a Zerg player not making too many Zerglings can get almost no cannons and can get his tech extremely quickly. And that can be a huge benefit. Or if you know, the Protoss opponent sees his opponent getting Zerglings, he can make just the right amount of cannons. The huge danger that a lot of Protoss players face is they just get way too many defenses, and it just delays everything and gives the control to Zerg. And that has been the key difference between the games that NonY has won and lost in this series. In the games that he won, it was very clear that his opponent was on the run. His opponent was playing defensively and responsively, and he was controlling the pace of play. And right now, F91, he's doing this type of play. F91 is trying to battle to try to force NonY to have a certain type of play. And that's exactly like the hallmark of a strong player, is just forcing your opponent to do things. So now that I've spent a huge amount of effort doing all that game theoretic type big scale stuff, we can just talk about what's actually happening in the game. We do see that there's +1 being upgraded for NonY and a Stargate making Corsairs. F91 is doing the very standard 3 base into 5 hatch Hydralisk play. We see that Hydra Den going down, more drones being made, and only 1 Geyser out for F91. We have a few too many idle larvae right now for F91, much more than I'd like to see. But it looks like he was saving up for the hatchery, so he clearly has planning going on there. We also see the robotics support bay going down right after that first Corsair is up, and this Corsair is going to plop right into his main, right when that Spire is getting close to being finished. So again, NonY taking his time, killing off some Corsairs. Briefly notice this timing. NonY is killing off Overlords because he knows he doesn't quite need to check for Corsairs yet. Or excuse me, he doesn't quite need to check for a Spire yet. Because, again, he's making tons of Corsairs in his main, and this is about the time when that Spire would finish. Notice that this is the same timing that NonY used on Andromeda when he lost. Rather than scout in Andromeda, he killed off Overlords. And this is, again, all the trickery going on from F91. In Game 2 in Andromeda, that game that happened way long ago, NonY clearly had the timing that we're seeing right now in mind. He clearly was preparing against this 5 hatch type play. He wasn't quite ready for the sort of aggressive, ultra-fast Mutalisk. So I think that's a good example for a lot of players trying to learn, is to note that how these timings are good and bad and in what circumstances. So still no cannon being thrown down in NonY's main, which is fine, because that's exactly what NonY was expecting. NonY is not planning to be dealing with a bunch of Mutalisks anytime soon. Still more drones and Hydras being produced for F91. And these Scourge that are scouting around in NonY's main just to check out what's up. Notice that NonY skipped producing that shuttle just so he could get his Reavers that much earlier. I think this is an excellent safe play by NonY. Because if he gets his shuttle a little too quickly against an aggressive player like F91, F91 may have developed some sort of Hydralisk timing to run in there and bust things down. So right now, this is exactly the position that NonY wants to be in, where he's getting a nice big Corsair army and getting ready to pop out with some Reaver harass. And notice that NonY is throwing down that Citadel. NonY's slowly building up gas as he's doing this style. It's this gas that's going to allow NonY to transition into the more Templar ground-oriented play. We still see just Hydralisk being thrown down for F91, and he's doing the usual sort of +1 attack upgrade early. And notice how beautifully he's positioning everything in his base. Now here's a few key things to note. If you go into F91's main, we note that the Spire is upgrading +1 carapace. That's something that's so great about these Liquibition matches, that you can actually see what these players are doing right now. You don't have to wait until the upgrade's done to know. Or, you know, like the Forge, you can see it spinning, so you can clearly see it's upgrading, but with the Spire sometimes it's difficult. Well, actually, it is difficult because it doesn't have an animation. So yeah, that +1 carapace is clearly what F91 is going to be using much later for map control. So here come the Corsairs and the Reavers of NonY. Notice NonY is leaving a Reaver in his main, and there's 2 Zealots in here instead of 2 Reavers. This is to ensure that NonY doesn't lose to this sort of counterattack. And be careful with your shuttle! Oh my god, NonY almost lost his first shuttle. I mean, when your entire play revolves around doing a big sort of Corsair shuttle harass, you really don't want to just lose the shuttle. Now, this is a sort of army that a lot of Zerg players are having a huge amount of trouble with. This style of army that NonY is doing right now, where he gets a whole bunch of Speed Zealots and a shuttle with Reavers right after he starts doing this harassment. It looks kind of like NonY is getting ready to take his expansion, so a lot of Protoss, or a lot of Zerg players kind of start powering, maybe try to expand, make a few more drones. But then when Protoss comes out with this huge Zealot Reaver army, it's really difficult for Zerg players to deal with. So I actually love this play that NonY's doing right now. We see these Corsairs continuing to wander around, and here is the Overlord clump. Oh, that's so juicy. Oh my god, NonY wants nothing more in the world than to kill off all those Overlords. NonY doing, again, a great job of wandering around here, killing off anything he can. This is fantastic by NonY, because think of how easy that is to control as a Protoss player. It's one control group that's trying to wander in and out. As a Zerg player, you're trying to constantly reposition 3, 4, 5 control groups of Hydralisks, trying to make sure that, you know, not only do you hold off these Corsairs and keep your Overlords alive, but also that you don't accidentally reposition your Hydralisk and lose to a Reaver. Right now, NonY gets to take this expansion for free. That is, he doesn't do the big attack that I thought he was going to. Either way, think of how great this is for NonY. He's getting to run around with these Corsairs, and look at F91, look at his main, look at his natural. There's all these Hydralisks positioned for this Reaver attack that really is not going to attack, that isn't going to happen. NonY gets to take his expansion totally for free. This really, like, inhibits Zerg's ability to make a big attack. F91 loves doing these big-scale counterattacks and walking into his opponent's base and killing him right now, but F91 can't bring his entire army in. He just cannot get the opportunity to do that because there are just too many threats that are posed by this Corsair group constantly wandering around. Now, I'm curious where... Oh, there's a Corsair group. Notice F91 is making this big... Oh, he's making this big Mutalisk Scourge army. Now he's going to wander in, he's going to take out the Templar, and NonY's Corsairs are positioned at the wrong side of this Hydra's group. Oh, the Corsairs are trying to run back, but he loses 3 Corsairs on the way back, and the Reaver is going to fall too. One beautiful storm comes out, but now there are no big damaging type units for NonY left. NonY did manage to kill off all those Overlords, but only now is there 1 High Templar out. This is a really kind of risky situation for Protoss to be in. Here comes the big Hydralisk army. Oh my god, they're going to catch these High Templar off guard. The only 2 High Templar that NonY have, one of them gets picked off. And here comes this big Hydralisk army of F91. Look at the timing of this. This is beautiful. Running in from 2 sides, killing off the probe at the natural, and there's just not enough energy for the storm. It looks like F91 might be able to kill off this huge army from NonY. Whether he can or not, look at this. F91's now killing off the expansion of NonY. F91 continuing to put on this really aggressive pressure that's really just ripping his Protoss opponent apart. And oh no, NonY was able to push back and stop this big harass, but he lost his expansion at the front, and he lost a Reaver too. That's just the worst situation to be in. Right now, NonY, totally disorganized, only has 5 gateways, just lost the shuttle with his Reaver, now losing all his Templar. His units are totally disorganized. This Hydralisk Mutalisk play for F91 is just crushing NonY. Right now, all those Hydralisks that were once positioned defensively in F91's main are now just streaming towards F91, or excuse me, streaming towards NonY's front. It looks like this game is going to be over, and F91 is going to take this series again, looking like he's going to win Liquibition 29, again, only with 2 losses. So 4 Dragoons and a Reaver are going to come out, hopefully try to do a miracle. Hopefully that Reaver shot can come out and do what those 2 dead Reavers wanted to do. But again, too many Hydralisks come in, kill it off, and it looks like NonY will GG any second now. There it is, GG. F91 to win Liquibition 29 with 4 wins against NonY to 2 losses. What fantastic play we saw by NonY right there. NonY managed to, what fantastic play we saw by both players in that series, in particular by the aggressive Zerg player F91. F91 was able to use a huge variety of play. F91 was able to make his hatcheries first. He was able to go pool first. He was able to do a huge variety of stuff, and often he caught NonY completely off guard and was able to do some really amazing things early on. I mean, we saw on Andromeda, F91, again, I still want to keep talking about that game, how weird that opening was. How he went 12 pool and then 12 gas and then took his hatchery and ended up with this timing that completely threw NonY off. Clearly, NonY was expecting a 3 hatch into layer play, as we saw by the fact that NonY happily killed off an Overlord before scouting F91's main. And that ended up winning the game for NonY winning the game for F91 really early. We saw F91 take little risks that a lot of players wouldn't take. We saw NonY on Blue Storm do a beautiful timing with all his positionings, and F91 saw it and said, well, I could run some Zerglings by that, and he did, and it made NonY leave the game in 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Even in the game that NonY won on Loki, we saw F91 do this beautiful aggressive break that most Zerg players wouldn't have even been comfortable taking. So that is just a prime example of how if you incorporate more aggressive attacks into your play, you can realize that there are weak points that your Protoss opponents weren't expecting their Zerg opponents to exploit. Wow, just beautiful play by F91. And even with that said, I do still want to compliment NonY for just doing a really good job of dealing with F91 in the games where he won. I mean, NonY did a great job of controlling the pace of play, of pushing his opponent back, and especially on Loki, he didn't lose his footing when he lost that expansion. He continued to be really aggressive with those Corsairs, and even on Tau Cross, he was just totally prepared for every attack that his opponent had at any point in time. But wow, just again, great timing, great play by F91. F91 just terrorized the community, crushing JF, Idra, Strylock, and now NonY, truly proving that he's one of the foreign Zerg superstars of the day. I mean, really the only match that he's lost recently was against Legend, the eventual winner of the Asia ESWC qualifier. So I think that about sums it up. This is the last Liquibition for a while. So unfortunately, you will not be graced by the presence of F91's dominant, aggressive Zerg play. So from all of us here at TeamLiquid.net, thank you hugely for tuning in to Liquibition number 29, where F91 destroyed NonY 4-2. Impressive play by both players, but again, the aggressive Zerg comes out on top. So thanks so much everyone for tuning in. This is Day 9 reporting in. Cheers everyone, and good luck in your future matches.